Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to do it a little bit differently, and the eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed that I already have beer in my glass, which is very unusual for my beer reviews to start off with. So what happened with this video was basically I started filming it, got through the history section, got the aroma done, got the appearance and stuff done, took my first sip of the beer, and then the camera decided it was going to restart itself, and unfortunately that corrupted the whole first half of the video. But I did manage to get basically an original tasting profile done. So yeah, I thought let's just kind of refilm the start of the video and redo the aroma, and yeah, it should still hopefully turn out to be quite a nice review, this one. So a little bit different, and I hope that you guys still enjoy it. But like I say, for me, I like my reviews to be, you know, the first tasting of the beer. I'm not a great fan of kind of redoing tasting sections of the video. Otherwise, I would have to leave it for a very long time to review this beer again, so that I forgot what it was like. But yeah, hopefully it still turns out to be an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. But for this one then, we are going to head through to Edinburgh once again. We're going to go to Leith to be specific, and we're having a look at my third beer from Newbarns Brewery. So this one is called the Pilsner. It comes in at 4.2% ABV, and I don't think I need to tell you what style this one is. I will tell you that it did turn out to be quite a nice beer, and yeah, you will enjoy the tasting section of this video, I'm sure. But yeah, I was very curious to see how it turned out, and it certainly didn't disappoint. So before you see the tasting section of the video then, we'll do as we always do. I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before you see that, but if you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Newbarns Brewery before, and you will see more added to that list in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to quite a little bit at the moment because I am enjoying a little bit of an extended period at home in the motherland. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you showed the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about the brewery then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've told you before, Newbarns Brewery were founded in 2020, and they're based in Leith, which is kind of to the northeast-ish of the central part of Edinburgh. But the four friends behind this brewery are Emma McIntosh, Gordon Mackenzie, Johnny Hamilton and Freddie Bjerkseth, and all of these guys have a hell of a pedigree within the craft beer world. But Gordon and Emma are a couple, and they moved down to London from the east coast of Scotland back in 2012. They hadn't actually planned to become brewers when they went down there, but Gordon started working at Siren Craft Brewery in 2013, not long after it opened, and Emma started working for the Kernel Brewery in early 2014. But they met Freddie in 2012, just before he began working at Beavertown, and he was a sales account manager there. But there was also Johnny, and he worked at Beavertown and was in charge of the Tempest barrel aging project as well, actually. So as you can see, a very kind of strong brewing pedigree amongst these guys. But Gordon later went to work with Emma at the Kernel Brewery as well. But in 2018, Gordon and Emma decided that it was time to return to Scotland, and they'd always wanted to set up their own brewery. But by the following year, Freddie and Johnny had also joined them up in Edinburgh, and it was time for them to get started on planning Newbarns Brewery properly. But the branding of the beers that they do, or their symbol that you can see on the front of the can here, this is apparently inspired by a bunch of old beer mats dating from between the 1940s and 1980s, and Emma's dad found these at an auction, and so they base all of their kind of branding and stuff off that, which is pretty cool. But apparently these guys want to focus on the more sessionable styles of beer, such as lagers and paleos and stuff like this, and I have to say, on the basis of the beers that I've tried so far from them, they are doing it very well. And the fact that they're doing it in a more kind of American style sense is quite a it's something a little bit different for the Scottish beer scene. My local brewery, Williams Brothers, they do a lot of really nice sessionable beers, but you know, the Newbarns ones are kind of done more in the context of American style beers, I would say. But yeah, they've produced a fair few beers so far. They've only been brewing, I think, for 7-8 months, something like that. But as of January 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 15 different beers. They are hoping to open up a tap room at the brewery as well, so hopefully I can get along there and have a look at that during my next trip home to Scotland in September. Of course, they've been hindered with the whole COVID-19 pandemic there. But Leith seems to have a fairly strong beer scene these days. Now we've got Newbarns, Stewart Brewing have a tap room there as well, the Dockside Tap, and there's Campervan Brewery out that way as well, which is which is quite interesting. But yeah, this should be really quite cool actually, to see how this brewery progresses over the next few years. But like I said, I've been impressed with the beers I've had from them so far. I do have a big dark beer to review from them quite soon, so you'll see that appearing on the channel. And I do hope that we can get these guys on as well for a little bit of a kind of meet the brewery or something. That would be really cool to get these guys when they're in such an early state of development. By the time it's September, that will have been them in business for probably just a bit over a year. So that would be a cool point to get an interview with Newbarns Brewery. So fingers crossed we can get that started. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about the history of this brewery for the moment. I'm sure there'll be more things to add to it over the coming while, but yeah, if you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, before we do the other bits and bobs of this video, I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. There you can see it's quite similar to what we've had before from both the Pale Ale and the Oat Lager in terms of the artwork. There you can see the the Newbarns Brewery symbol there, which looks very, very cool, and you can see that the Newbarns thing just extends all the way around the thing here. But yeah, 13 Jane Street, Edinburgh, and it tells you on the back here, this one has wheat in it, which I think is quite unusual for a Pilsner style beer, and this one has Kalista in it as well, which is a fairly new German hop. It usually comes in between 4 to 6% alpha acid, if I remember rightly. It gives you some really nice kind of apricot-y notes, and you know, sometimes it can give you a little bit of berry as well. Some people say that it gives you a little bit of berry, but a very new German hop, and it does turn out quite nicely in this beer, as you'll see in the tasting section of the video. But yeah, this one, 440ml can. Obviously I paid I think £3.50 for this, so that would translate into roughly about €4, about 40 Swedish kroner I would think, and so about $5 American for those of you watching in different parts of the world. But yeah, this beer was bought from the House of Trembling Madness down in York because they had a good selection of different Newbarns things, and so this was one that I just wanted to try, so I went for it. But yeah, you know, when we opened the beer up, you could see it poured. It actually, when it poured, it had a solid finger of quite a bumpy white head actually, but you can see the colour of this one is a lovely kind of pale hazy golden straw, a little bit of a natural kind of haze to that, but I mean nothing unexpected from this beer in terms of it being a Pilsner. I do wonder if it had been filtered a little bit, but yeah, I mean it looks very, very nice, and it looks authentic in terms of what you would expect from a Pilsner beer. So remember, when it comes to the Pilsner beer, this style of beer originates from the city of Pilsen in the Czech Republic. Pilsner, of course, or Pils, I think is the German word. I think Pilsen was the German word for it. So Pilsner is the German word for something originating from this city, and that's where this style of beer takes its name. So it's now the Czech Republic. It was originally the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The brewer who developed this beer came from Bavaria. He was only in Pilsen for about 2 years, I think. He wasn't a very nice man, and I think he was kicked out basically not long after he arrived. He only stayed in Pilsen for about 2 years, and the beer that he developed is what is now Pilsner Urquell, or Pilzhenski Prazdroj, as the Czechs call it, the original Pilsner beer. So yeah, that's the story of the Pilsner. But remember, these are lager beers, and a lager beer is defined as a bottom fermenting yeast or a cold fermentation, usually about 10 degrees, whereas an ale is a top fermenting yeast, and that tends to ferment between around 16 to 18 degrees, if I remember rightly. So yeah, the Pilsner style beers are lagers actually. But yeah, this one did turn out to be really quite nice in terms of its appearance. It looks exactly as you would expect. But yeah, let's redo the aroma of this one and just see how we go with that. But yeah, I'm looking, I was enjoying how the Kalista hop came out in this one. But I mean, the thing you're going to notice with this beer straight away is that it comes across as being very, very authentic in terms of its aroma, and that's exactly what you look for with the Pilsner beers, at least in my opinion. I want these beers to be very authentic and like the ones that you're going to find in the Czech Republic or Germany. The German ones, in my experience, tend to be a little bit more kind of dry, sometimes a little bit more kind of biscuity and caramelly, whereas the Czech ones tend to be a little bit more kind of smooth and bready, if that makes sense. So to use wheat in this beer, I think is a little bit unusual, and I thought it was going to make it lean a little bit more towards the kind of Czech side of things, but turned out it didn't. But yeah, in the aroma with this one, you get a lot of kind of very straight up authentic stuff out of this. So I mean, you will notice a little bit of a nice kind of white bready base to it. You can smell a little bit of that kind of crisp Pilsner quality in there, but I think the Pilsner malt in this one comes across as a little bit oily in the aroma, and you can smell that slightly thicker wheaty note to it. Just a little bit of a kind of deeper, if you take the aroma in a little bit more deeply, you will get a little bit of bitiness out of the wheat. There's a few little biscuity, you know, McVitie's digestive biscuit elements to it as well, but that kind of covers the malty side of this beer as well. So yeah, the hoppy side of things, you can smell, you get these typical, you know, German noble elements out of this one, so I do wonder if there is a little bit of a noble hop in this beer, as well as the Kalista that they're mentioning. But yeah, a little bit of earthiness this one. You do get a nice kind of bright floral aromaticity, and for me that is the signature of these kind of German hops. Even the likes of the Mandarina Bavaria, the Hallertau Blanc and things like that, the newer German hops, they still have that sort of German noble quality to them. If you compare it to the Czech Žatec, the Sats, they tend to be a little bit more kind of spicy, whereas the floral aromaticity in these in the German ones is just a little bit brighter, if that makes sense. But you do get a little bit of a kind of more zesty, grassy kind of quality out of this one as well. It does almost have a little bit of a kind of just an almost lemony, grassy type quality to the beer. But yeah, nice floral aromaticity, quite deep, a little bit of lemony grass, and a wee touch of a kind of earthiness in there as well. But yeah, I really like, I do like the green component to this beer, and again it complements the malt base really nicely. But on the fruity side of things, you're definitely going to get a little bit of the apricot out of this one from the Kalista. For me, there's a good little bit of pear in there. You do get some elements of that kind of typical appley sort of thing. These are elements that you would of course get from the Hallertau and the Tettnangers, and there is just a little bit of a kind of limey, lemony, sort of grassy vibe to the aroma as well. But in terms of a Pilsner, you know, you can smell with this one, it is a little bit more oily, and you'll see how that turns out in the flavour just in a little minute then. So yeah, it comes across as very, very authentic, this one. The Kalista adds an interesting dimension to it for sure. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of that beer before you get stuck into it. That's always half the experience when it comes to craft beer. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this kind of refilmed part of the video, and we'll go back to the original one just after, when I'd actually tasted the beer for the first time. So let's go to that. Sorry about the edit there, guys. The camera just decided it was going to restart itself for some reason. I honestly don't know why. The camera's been a little bit strange at the moment. But yeah, as I was saying, you know, Newbarns Brewery, these guys seem to be a really nice addition to the Scottish beer scene. I really appreciate this approach of, you know, going for the more sessionable, drinkable beers, and they're doing them very, very well. I mean, I've been impressed with the 3 beers that I've had from these guys so far. So yeah, let's try and just break down the flavour profile of this one then and describe it a little bit more. So yeah. So yeah, first off, as I think I was just about to say, this Pilsner, first impression of it is that it's got a nice oiliness to it. It has got a little bit of an oily character to it, but at the same time it's got a wee bit of smoothness. This isn't the most dry of Pilsners that you're going to come across. It does have that nice kind of, it does have a little bit of that kind of Pilsner malt sort of crispness and dryness to it, but at the same time that comes across as being a little bit more oily, and it also just feels very, very clean as well. And I'm guessing that'll be, I always say this in the reviews, but it's the Scottish water coming out again. I always find that the Scottish beers come across as really quite clean. We get the same stuff with the beers from very far north in Sweden, actually, but yeah, this beer comes across as really quite clean and oily. So yeah, I really like that about this one. It's got everything you would expect of a Pilsner beer, but it's just got a little kind of Scottish touch to it, I have to say. I like that about this for sure. But yeah, let's just break down the flavour profile of it a bit more. But that's my first impression of this one, definitely. But yeah, so straight away with this beer then, what you're going to get is you can feel the nice malty quality just blanket in the middle of your palate there. In the middle third of your palate, it definitely feels a little bit more kind of crisp and white bready. So you get that there, but then as you move further back into that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, there is a little bit more of a kind of crisp dryness to the beer actually, which I really like, and it's not overly dry. It's just got a nice, even the Pilsner malt has a little bit of an oiliness to it, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, you do get a little bit of that kind of how do you say that, archetypical, is that what I'm saying? Yeah, the archetypical sort of Pilsner crispness there, and that's on that border region between middle third and back third of your palate. When you go into that back third of your palate, it does spread back a little bit in fairness, but you can feel the wheat sort of having its influence there. You can feel that slightly thicker and smoother white bready character in there. That's the wheat of the beer, just giving it a little bit more kind of backbone, if that makes sense. But as you go towards the very back of the palate, you'll get a few little bitey elements to the wheat, I think, and as you move further forward on the tongue there, it gets gradually more kind of smooth, if that makes sense. You can feel the wheat just being a little bit more kind of smooth as you move further forward. As you reach that border region, you can feel the thickness of the beer just kind of dropping away. And then as you move into that middle third of your palate, again you've got that nice sort of smooth and slightly crisp white bready note there. You can feel that it might just be association, but Golden Promise, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very popular malt to use in the New England IPAs and stuff like this these days. And the middle of your palate in this beer, it just almost feels very, very slightly oaty in my mind. Just very, very slightly, I have to say. But yeah, the Golden Promise adds a real nice kind of depth to the beer. I do suspect there's a bit of Pilsner malt in here as well, but yeah, you do get a wee bit of a kind of biscuity. You do get a really nice little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity sweetness out of this beer for sure. So yeah, the malt base in this one is done very, very nicely, and I've said that about the other beers that I've had from Newbarns Brewery as well, the Paleo, Citra, Equinaut, and then the Oat Lager. These guys really know what they're doing when it comes to these lighter, sessionable beers, but that's what their whole kind of mantra is. They want to do these kind of sessionable beers, but yeah, malt base is really nicely done on this and very authentic. As I say, to me, it's a little bit more oily than some of the other kind of pilsners that you're going to come across, and it definitely leans a little bit more towards the more German, dry, crisp pilsner side of things than the more bready, yeasty Czech Pilsen, if that makes sense. So, and it's got the Scottish kind of cleanliness to it as well. It's just got a little bit of a more oily character. So yeah, definitely more of a German Pilsner than a Czech Pilsen. I would definitely go with that with this one. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it very quickly becomes floral, to be honest with you. I mean, it's actually got a wee bit of kind of spice to it almost, but yeah, you very much get a very quite a big floral character coming out of this beer, and as you move further forward along to the kind of front corners of your palate there, it goes together very, very nicely, I have to say. So I really like how this one pieces together actually. So thumbs up to Newbarns Brewery for this one. But yeah, on the as I say, this beer just got gradually more and more floral until you reach the front corners of the palate, and as you go round the front curve of the tongue, it's just a little bit lighter and more kind of grassy. Around the front curve of the palate, the grassiness has a wee bit of zestiness to it. It's almost a little bit kind of peppery in a way. It's just got a little tiny touch of spiciness on the grassy side of things on the front curve of the palate, but then on that front third of your tongue, there's that nice, it does have that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just kind of roll their way out of the beer. So as you go towards the back of that front third of your tongue, you get a little bit of a stronger kind of citrusy quality out of the back of it. So yeah, it does have a wee bit of a stronger kind of lemony, citrusy sort of thing. But then as you move further forward, it mellows out a little bit. Then you start to get these kind of apricot-y type qualities from the Calista, obviously. And then as you reach the kind of front edge of the tongue, it does really start to get a little bit more kind of lemony and zesty and stuff like this. There are a few kind of peary esters in there as well, which are quite nice. Maybe a wee touch of like an appley note, just, and again that's on the kind of front part of that front third of your tongue as well. So yeah, it's got everything that you'd expect. I do like that fruity transition, quite strong citrus, more apricot-y, then a little bit more peary, and then you've got the kind of lemony, zesty kind of things in there as well. So I really like how this one goes together actually. It's a very well done and very well executed Pilsner, this one, and it's got the levels of authenticity that you would want from this style of beer. So thumbs up to Newbarns Brewery again. I really want to try the extra Pilsner, the slightly more hoppy one. That would be more like an Italian Pilsner, I guess. So yeah, need to have a little go at that one the next day or whenever I get the opportunity. So yeah, awesome stuff, I have to say. Well done to Newbarns Brewery for this, everything in this beer goes together very, very well in my mind. There's not too much more to say about the flavour profile of this one, other than that the floral aromaticity that really lingers on the sides of the palate, and I really appreciate that about this beer for sure. I really, really enjoy that here. But yeah, the flavour of this beer is really just very, very nice. I have to say, I really, really appreciate what's going on with this one. It really is just really very, very nice. It's solidly executed, and you cannot ask for much more than that from a Pilsner. So I'd be curious to see them do Pilsners with different hops and things like that, you know, do a Pilsner hop series or something like that. That could be a very interesting thing for Newbarns Brewery to do going forward. But I do want to have a go at the extra Pilsner that they've got as well. We need to see about trying to get a hold of that beer. But yeah, solidly done beer this, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. Really, really like this one. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, to round off the review, but yeah, for me, this beer, it's, you know, it's at the bottom end, it's at the top end of light-bodied, bottom end of mid-bodied. The carbonation does have a good little bit of crispness to it, this one. But I would say that overall, this beer, for a Pilsner, it's one of the more oily examples that I've come across. It's not the most oily one, but I would say this one does have a good little bit of oily character, and it's got that lovely Scottish water cleanliness to it. In terms of the hoppy bitterness, I think this beer, I think it's about 25, maybe 30 IBUs. It does strike me as being a little bit more kind of bitter and spicy, but that could just be the presence of the Calista hop in this one. It could just be that, because you know, it does have just a little bit more kind of spiciness to it, and almost a little bit of a kind of peppery type thing to it. So it's interesting that I am finding that in the Pilsner beer, maybe the Calista just comes across as a little bit more spicy. I remember in the Calista Pils from Overtone, it was a little bit softer, but maybe that was, as I say, a little bit more of a kind of yeasty, Helles type beer, that one, in honesty. But yeah, this beer, it does have a nice little bit of crispness and bitterness. I would say maybe about 30 IBUs in this one. But the malt base, like I say, has a bit of smoothness to it. It's got a little bit of a slightly thicker wheaty quality at the back of the palate, a little bit of kind of dryness and a wee touch of sweetness. So the malt base in this one, again, is very well executed, but lovely kind of soft fruity characters in there as well. Just overall, as I say, this beer gets a massive thumbs up from me. Really enjoyed this one, and it's always nice to try new lager beers from Scottish breweries as well. So I would love to see these guys do a Dunkel and a Doppelbock and things like that at some stage, because obviously they do have a little bit of a knack for these things. Some Munich Helles type beers and some, you know, Czech Svetlis, like doing all these different things. A Vienna lager would also be really interesting from Newbarns as well, actually. But yeah, it's very, very early stages for these guys. I think they've only really been brewing maybe about 6 months or something like that, but you know, the quality of the beers that these guys are putting out there are very, very strong, and you know, we will see very good things from these guys over the next years, I'm sure. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. So this beer was the Pilsner, 4.2% ABV from Newbarns Brewery in Leith through in Edinburgh. Really, really enjoyed reviewing this one for you. I've been enjoying a lot of nice lager beers recently, and this one certainly has stood up, has given a very, very good account of itself, we should say. So yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Newbarns Brewery. We will return to these guys very, very soon. As I said, I've got one big beer to review from these guys, and I do hope that I can get the extra pills as well. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Newbarns Brewery, and I'll catch you guys in the next review. The Pilsner at 4.2% ABV from Newbarns Brewery in Leith through in Edinburgh. Slàinte, skål, cheers.